So hello everyone, this is a year-ender from the Citizen team. We have some of our reporters here to share their experiences of 2023. News as we know it, and not news as some sections of the media practice. For us, I remember when we started off in journalism and over the years, we were always told that news is not opinion, news is not pointing fingers, news is about raising the voices of those whose voices are not heard. News is about saying the truth and not making up news. And news is about making sure that there is no fake element in it. Many of us lost our jobs when we fooled around with the news and the facts. Many of us never got jobs again because of our bad reputation. And many of us went on to be, recognized as journalists with experience and with credibility. Credibility is a very, very major component of reporting. You can have hundreds and thousands and millions of viewers. You can scream and you can shout every evening. But if your credibility doesn't exist as a journalist, then you're just a show person who is running some kind of a show or a reality show. So news we've learned from print, when print was really on the ground, when we had amazing editors, when we were told about ethics and responsibilities, we were told about our duties, we were told about our boundaries, and yet we were told to go out because the sky was the limit. It was not even the limit because the sky has no limit. So we have reporters here. The Citizen is, as you know, a small initiative, but it's an initiative which is not compromised with the news. We continue to report from the ground with our very minimal resources. We have experts writing for us without charging us because they believe in what they write. And we have reporters who have taken cuts in their salaries, but stay with us because they have the freedom to write. Now, I'm not saying this, I'm going to ask them about it. And I'm going to start, we have right now online with us, Rajiv Khanna, who's a very senior reporter, who's been around for a long time. I've had the good fortune to work with him earlier in the Asian Age. We have Karuna John, who is our copy editor, who is handling the desk, not just for us, but for years and years of experience. And we have Nikita Jain, who is one of these dynamic young women who like to be, out on the ground far more than sit behind the desk. And so Rajiv, tell us in 2023, you've done a lot of stories, you've done 2,500 word stories, you've done short stories, you've traveled through the states, you have covered all the elections or many of the elections that are held in the North. Tell us which is the one story that was dear to your heart, the coverage of it.
Well, Seema, I'll say two stories, but linked.
Yeah, sure.
And that, of course, is the environmental disaster. First, it was Joshimath, and later it was Himachal. So since I've worked in Uttarakhand also, and I've worked in Himachal also, these are stories. And like you said, we should be talking the voice of the people. Normally, what we get to read or we get to see on television is just saying this or the government saying that or the government doing this and government doing that. But what about the people on the ground? What do they feel? And when it is a disaster like this, and we can go back, we can see, how the information flow, even from the most credible of government agencies, was stopped to go out to people, and they didn't know what was happening. Imagine a town sinking, people being moved out of their homes in bitter cold, and yet they were trying to raise their voice. And we, whatever little we could do, we were trying to air that voice, what they felt, what it was, what they wanted. And it was not only Joshimath. Once Joshimath came to light, there were similar reports from so many other towns, villages in the hills. And later it was Himachal. And both these places, what actually happened was the people, of course, in whatever way they can, they're not always a very good communicator, although they're very wise. They understand what's happening on the ground, how it is happening, why it is happening. And that is our, emphasis also, just to try to explain why something is happening. And then what was actually exposed at both these places was the new development model, with the big question, whose development and at whose cost?
Right.
And of course, as we know that nature has given us enough for our needs, but not for our greed. That was there. But everybody must have seen those videos of houses collapsing like,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
cards, it was like that. But then, and even now, the lessons are not learned. And again, since we try to raise the voice of the people, we'll keep on reporting on these issues. For example, in Himachal right now, it's New Year's, and in 10 days, there are around 1.6 lakh vehicles that have entered Shimla alone. And you can imagine what's the scenario like.
Yeah.
And this whole process of the so-called development of making roads, because that is something tangible that people see. And politicians can always peddle, saying that, yes, we built a road, you can see that. But the real issues.
And what's the second story?
Second story, of course, would be politics, Seema. Traveling earlier to Madhya Pradesh and then to Rajasthan. Politics is always a learning experience. And apart from politics, what makes politics? There are issues of gender, there are issues of caste, there are issues of communalism. There's that, the strong interdependence of communities that lasts over and above this politics, no matter what people say, no matter how many riots are generated, no matter how much violence goes on. But then people have that interdependence and they know that. So it's always a learning experience. Particularly Rajasthan for me was a new state this time. So it was all the more interesting to go there. Right.
So Nikita, I'll come to you. You've been out in the field, covered a lot of stories. Tell us the one that sort of most impacted on you and why.
Firstly, thank you for talking to me here. And also, there's so many stories that I worked for the Citizen because I got the chance to work at the Citizen. So it's very hard to choose. But I think for me, covering elections in Rajasthan was a very unique experience because even though I have covered elections before, but the fact that I worked on a lot of gender-based stories in the Citizen. I got that chance, was really interesting, and I feel as if traveling to the remote villages of Rajasthan and talking to those women who are, they're so smart, they're intelligent. I met a lot of wonderful women was something that really impacted me and also made me realize that there is much more to explore, much more to cover, and elections were a way for me to find even more stories, which I thought is important for me to go back to and not just come here for elections.
Right. And Karuna, I know you are more of a sub-editor, and you like to do that. But you have also sort of gone out in the field and you have written for us. Because we are this kind of a team, we're a small team where everybody does everything. Except not many of us, not many of the reporters fortunately edit copy. But tell us, what is the story that you enjoyed covering?
I think for me, it was, again, it was two stories, and being based in Delhi, it's a different kind of opportunity, and it's in fact a privilege as a journalist. So first was the Bharat Jodo Yatra, which having covered many rallies and even political events across the country. But this was the one event that was coming to the people. So it was even surprising for me after 25 years in journalism to see the crush of people organic. There were no buses bringing them. It was the leaders and the politicians going into their gullies. And with Nikita, in fact, how we also met in the middle of the road after taking 3 metros and 4 U-turns. And so from Faridabad to Ghaziabad on different days, the crush of humanity that responds to a call was an interesting learning experience. And the reverse was the other side of the coins, the protest by the wrestlers. I think we were among one of the first few there, many other events which happened in Delhi. When there was nothing, there was 10, 15 of them sitting, and I know Nikita's gone, and Ashish, our video colleague, has also gone. So the impact was that when an organic protest happens, when people empathize and people see someone talking about their cases, what I am every day. So you see that this is not even as journalists. We go knowing that we know nothing, and we have to hear the people and observe. and not pass our own judgment. Keep our biases at home when you leave, and every human has the biases, but our learning and our discipline as journalists is listen to the people, absorb what they've said, and put it out to even more people. So these two were stories that really impacted me, and I think the results of our stories had impacts on the ground. I know the Rohingya stories, etc. People reach out to want to help. People reach out to want to write more. Lots of students reach out to us wanting to write more because they see that a very senior journalist like Rajiv goes to DU, writes the political story, but then will also write about this unusual little kitchen he found run by an old couple. Or Nikita goes to Rajasthan, writes the political story, but talks about water impacting the women there. That those are eternal stories, which inspires a lot of young students pitch to us, which is something I think that also impacts me in the newsroom as such. So which is a great, I think, inspiration to take into the next year as well.
So, all of you have talked about the kind of thrill that you get from the crush of humanity, of the people, of interacting with people as you move around. Now, there are two other aspects of journalism, which I think all of us have sort of experienced as in the field and even not on the field necessarily, is that one is that when we used to write, I remember, maybe Rajiv would remember, even as a crime reporter, was a small reporter, cub reporter covering university, used to write something and there would be immediate remedial action. Either they'd contradict you, which is fine, but there would also be remedial action. And that gave you a sense of, of thrill, really, and also a sense of where journalism could go and how much we could change the system. But over the years, when governments started getting more and more sort of into themselves and started ignoring the media, and this is not something that has happened just now, it has been a gradual build up to it, then you started realizing that governments are not jumping at what we write, and they actually want to cover up what we are saying, and they want to ignore you, or they want to ridicule you, and now, as we know, they want to troll you, or they arrest you. They do all kinds of things to make sure that there's no remedial action. So that's one. And then over the years, some of us started changing it and trying to, understand that it's basically the people we are writing for, and the government was incident. And it's the people whose voices we are able to raise. There's a level of satisfaction. But even then, it sometimes does worry you when governments ignore some of the major stories, like your environmental stories, like the restless protests. Everybody is writing about it, but there's no action on it. You're the youngest here, Nikita. When you sort of came into journalism, probably this shift had already occurred, and you didn't have governments jumping to your, to your stories. Do you feel that you would prefer that, or now have you made, you feel the people are really number one?
I used hear your stories and even Rajiv's and the experiences you have, and I think I messaged you also once how different it is from what we are seeing. Since I've entered journalism, this is one thing, the fact you're taught that like if you're doing a story, questioning the government is very important. Ask them questions, ask what has happened and why it happened. But for we are literally shunned. Like we are a lot of us journalists talk about that the generation, our generation, literally has no experience with handling governments, for especially central government. I did cover Delhi government a bit, and they reply as and when, but with the major officials, it's very hard to get by, and. I feel I would want to experience that. I would want where we also sit with government officials, have off the record conversations, understand their point of view, understand the dynamics, understand why particular policies coming. Right now, we just see laws being made or policies being made while there is literally no opposition in the parliament. So I think I would have loved to be part of that journalism, which was different and not just, stories of people, their point of view is important, but but I think the questioning of the government comes equal, like it's equal, like it's supposed to
Yeah.
happen equally. But
So-
that's not. I feel that I would want learn that.
Yeah, but you are questioning the government when you cover a protest. You're basically raising questions with the government also. So there is a way of doing it. Rajiv, have you sort of made your peace with it, given the fact that earlier you had government spokesmen ringing you up, ministries contacting you that this story, give us more details, we'll do something about it, and now it's the other way.
Well, Seema, the tools have changed. We have to accept that. Now, a minister, if he wants to say something, he'll just tweet a line.
Yeah.
No questions asked. That's happened. But again, the thing is, since you raise the voice of the people, it's the people who give you that kind of satisfaction. And, the impact is there. The governments are compelled to take action. The biggest example I can give you is the manner in which we were also a part of it, and some other outlets in the alternate media, when we exposed this entire Amritpal affair in Punjab, what
Right.
it was being made out to be and what
Absolutely.
it actually was. And, the simple question was, on one side, the governments are, arresting journalists just on mere apprehension that they'll write something and there'll be trouble. And here you have a person who's spewing venom in and out for 6 months continuously, and then what's the game plan? So when we expose that, and of course the people come there, and then what is of immense satisfaction is, for example, I get calls from Punjab. Farmers, we've been reporting quite a lot on farmers. But then there are farmers who don't know English, who don't read English. But then there are people who translate our stories, read
For
them
that.
to
Yeah, that's always been the
Punjabi.
case. Yes.
So that brings you immense satisfaction. Instead of reporting at a superficial level, one official saying that, one politician saying that, let them not say anything. But at least we have that contentment of raising the issues of the people on the ground. That is there.
That's what I wanted to, because Rajiv's stories do, I hear people saying it, and like he said, thanks to the tools that have changed, but even people are using it. They will Google Translate, they share snippets, and our AI will put in our links. So I've seen those stories go around, and the way we put our stories on Instagram, which for some reason in India is beyond language also, so they'll see it as a quick story and people respond. But I'm the bridge generation from access to no access, and I'm the bridge generation of journalism. So the access is also, we work around it, There is a way to work around it, and the mantri is no longer talking to you because the access has been cut off for everybody who is not Godi. So actually, it's a badge of pride that you're not considered Godi at all, and the cutoff of access is because you question. If you were going to tell them how beautiful they look and how everything is perfect, you will have that access.
Yes.
So it's a sign that you question.
Yeah. So having been a print journalist all my life, and I'm still a very committed print journalist in my mind, when we started digital was literally out of desperation, which is years ago, because you saw that the media was just getting away. It was being used, taken over by the corporates. It was not writing the truth. It was not giving space to the reporters. It was editing. Even, when experts write the opinion columns, they find that the opinion columns are completely edited and then taken on. I mean, this is just also ridiculous. And then we started the Citizen, thinking at least we'd have the space. Didn't realize, of course, that one, it was technology, which I'm terrible at, and I'm the one who has crossed the generation cross, where I don't know Instagram, but now I have had to learn. So there was a learning process, which is still learning, and I'm not really all there. But at the same time, you had the space, and at least you could give the space to everyone, which comes down to the point, Karuna, that many of our reporters, because of the kind of opinion and the kind of television that we have, where they're screaming, where any reporter comes in and is nasty and opinionated and tells people what she or he thinks, we have a lot of people who write for us, and I don't mean necessarily, definitely not the reporters on the staff, but we have a lot of young contributors. Do you find that they put in a lot of opinion and you have to edit it out even when the story is good? Or do you feel that opinion is being restricted in the people who write? By the
I think some amount of opinion is very relevant because they also reflect the janta. They reflect the readers and the citizen, So some opinion is valued and needed to start debates, because once you put out the fact, the discussions
That's
that
the
happen
opinion section by experts. But
Yeah.
I was talking about the young people who write. Do you think there's a tendency now, without experience, to say, well, it's a blue
Oh
sky.
yes, some, of course. Our
Hmm.
newsroom, which is,
Yeah.
if it's even just the five of us, there is over 100 years of work experience for
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
Between our experts, that 100 years is literally 1,000 years. The generals and the diplomats who write for us, and the international experts. So for the opinions of young writers is really based on, some of them are based on WhatsApp, which we fact check. And our readers don't know this, but they don't even get through, because we fact check, we look for plagiarism, and WhatsApp university graduates never make it here. So it's a matter of opinion that needs to also, some life experience I think is relevant. You can give me an opinion as a student about your subject, as a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old. I value that. But it cannot be about पिछले 70 years में क्या हुआ है भारत में, nothing हुआ है. So it doesn't work, honestly, as an editor also, and as a reader as well. So I want to know, who are you? Have you lived? Have you seen what happened in that riot, or at the farmers' protest, or at the restless protest? And the way, because you yourself have been a reporter for many, many, many years, and then an editor, and all of us have been reporters as well. I've been there. Like, I know exactly what the farmer ate. At every border, So you can't tell me sab Khalistani hai. So if like 20,000 farmers were Khalistani, then Delhi wouldn't have, I wouldn't be alive and sitting here, no? So it's a matter of very knee-jerk reactions also we get. But thanks to I think all of us have some instincts as well. So I don't think they pass muster. They are, our other editor very gently says no, literally, doesn't even waste wordage on it, as if we're on newsprint, So just no, thank you. So we do get a lot of opinions, unfortunately shaped by noisemakers on television debates. They are not news, they're just noise. And WhatsApp University, unfortunately, I still see has some hold. And now influencers who are just WhatsApp University on steroids. So a lot of fake news, a lot of crazy opinion making, divisive opinion making information is out there.
Nikita, you've been writing you've been with the Citizen for a while now. You've written before for other publications. You won awards from with stories that you've written for others. What would you say in this 1 year that you would have learned, which you count as slightly special, or something that you didn't know, and something that you've learned during your experience with the Citizen and in the field?
Firstly, working with you, I think that working with a veteran journalist like you was in itself a learning experience, and I tried, I listened to the suggestions and advice you gave. I think in my experience before, nowhere, genuinely, I've been, I was always looking for mentorship as a young journalist, and I think I've got that here. So this was something that I'm really grateful.
I didn't feed you that answer, so I know what anybody would say. Okay, now that was a rich question. Sounded almost like that. But thank you.
For verification, you can ask my friend. I say the same thing, and I think that a lot of journalists are craving for that mentorship, for that attention, for that learning in story, and I think that have changed. And also, writing 2,500 words was not easy for me before. Now I can very easily, which is surprising, because I was still not well versed with long forms. And I think here I've got that chance to write, and not just from ground, but also research-based articles, speaking to people, voicing, writing that sort of an article was also something very interesting, because that's like data, all the other information, that's interviews. So I think these are like two major things that I've learned here, and I before that could not, I think, did not get that chance, and I think would not have if I was working in mainstream news organization.
Right. Thanks. Rajiv, Nikita just mentioned the long form, and you're doing a lot of it yourself. In a way, it's a contrary demand that we make to the reporters, contrary to the times where people are looking at Instagram or have 40 words. Is that what X is? whatever it is, that kind of attention span. And here we're making you write 2,500 words where you go in, you speak to people, you get in-depth information, so that if I want to read it, I have a full picture of what you guys have written, from what you guys have written. Do you think there's a space for it? I mean, you've done it. Do you think it works? Do you think it's a good thing to continue with?
It does work, Seema, because there are people. See, when we talk about communication, we all know about the 5 Ws and 1 H. Now,
Yeah.
who, when, what, where is given to you even on your WhatsApp. Local level information, or WhatsApp or newspapers, they are also doing the same. There's hardly any, kind of in-depth stories coming these days, even in the newspapers. But then there are people who want the answer to how and why. And that is where these long forms come in. And this is something, of course, it's like, just a section of the population that wants this. But there definitely are readers. And these stories are quoted elsewhere.
I was just going to say that these have archival value.
In their researches, in their books, and for example, I know of many people who've been quoting our stories, even the opinions that appear in the Citizen.
Yeah, of course.
So that is very important. It's basically the how and why. And once, as a reporter or as a reader, you get hooked onto it, then you're always looking for that. And then, writing 500 words is what? Now, we can do it after so many years in hardly 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's actually, one enjoys working on a 2,500 word piece because you are enriching yourself also.
Yeah.
Going back in time, talking to people. Again, I'll give an example. While we were working on this Amritpal thing, and of course, this whole Khalistan issue, I was able to talk to players of that time, early 80s. I was able to talk to them. They're old now. But they were happy to come out with information, what they felt now, what they felt then, and raising some very pertinent questions. One of the most important questions that was raised in our story was that players of that time, they said, in a democracy, whenever there's a movement, the government say, put your arms down and come to the table.
Right.
But where is the table? We have not been called for the last 25 years to the table. A very pertinent question.
Yes.
So, it enriches you also. And then it kind of, gives you that incentive to write more and more of such pieces.
And you can get the information, you can chase information. I think what it is in journalism, I think what I love about the profession is the ability that if you're curious about something, you have that ability and you have that thing to chase it, or at least we did. We still keep it for the field. We don't get always answers from the corridors of power, but we definitely get it from the field.
The people.
And it always has to be, two things I think is very important is that when you are with a paper and digital space, we can reach out. I mean, if we had the resources, I would have had, we would have had people representing us and writing for us continuously in every state, in almost every other district or important town. That's the way it should be. It should never have been Delhi heavy. That's something I've always felt, though I've worked in all the Delhi newspapers. But we always felt that from the people when we went out, that you got everything in Delhi. Why don't you have people out here? Why don't you have people who we can identify with? Which is so important also. And it's also another thing that all of us who at least value the profession know that we are in the business to basically question governments. Either we do it through the people, but whatever, we raise their voices to question the government. We are not here to support any government. It can be BJP, which is worse to the media today than maybe the Congress was yesterday. But the Congress of yesteryear was probably better. And tomorrow we might have another government which will be great to the media, but we'll still continue questioning it because that's what we are in place for. We are, as journalists, doing this. What do you think about that, Karuna?
I agree. And that is the whole point. Otherwise, we would just be, no offense meant, PR people.
Yeah.
And we would be Xerox copies who can just type. Anybody can type. These days, you know how photojournalists, my friends tell me that every phone has a camera, but photojournalism remains different. Similarly, reportage and journalism is very different from reproducing, regurgitating words. And you mentioned, Nikita mentioned mentorship, which for this year, when we had our mentorship program, we had some amazing young talent of future journalists who I hope continue from Shillong, from Banaras,
Yes.
you know, and to see their point of view and to the time they got. I mean, in the tuition world, this would have been impossible, you know, in a university, in a journalism GA school doesn't
And then they
teach you.
publish their stories as well.
Yeah.
You know,
So they
work
cherish
on it.
that, you know, and like you get a little thank you note. So that, as I mean, you and Rajiv as the senior teachers.
All of you,
in that
all of
sense.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, but as senior teachers, because that, like we said earlier, the life experience, there is no other way to achieve it than live it, right? So you would have the advantage over us there, because you've also seen the transition, not just in journalism, in governments. And I don't know if we are at the bottom or the worst stage before it gets better. And
Or
the
it gets worse.
yeah, you know, so there's always hope. But we should just remind ourselves every now and then we're journalists. We are not PR people. I mean, bless them and may they prosper. We are not stenos, we are not mouthpieces. But some of us who have sold their souls, good for them for now, but life comes a full circle. So even that won't last forever. That I believe in. That won't last forever. Ethics always wins. That's the whole point.
And since we are optimists and we like to be optimistic, Nikita, what are you looking forward to in 2024? I mean, we don't know much of what are the political events or what's going to be happening except for the first few months. What are you looking forward to covering from what you know, or doubling up on what kind of coverage?
I think gender issue had always been something that I really wanted to in-depth cover, and I have been doing that here, and I would want to continue to do that because I feel as if it's still, despite it being covered daily, because gender violence and there's so many other aspects, it's not covered. It's not covered in an in-depth manner, in an analysis manner. There's so many other things that are happening. So I think that I'm looking forward to read more and pitch ideas according to that. There are also elections coming, so they are always exciting to see what's going to happen. So I think these are two events, and I mean, for us, work never ends because something calms down and something other blows up. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Although yes, there are so many other aspects to what's happening. It's scary, but it's also, for us, it's also exciting to see what's going to come.
Yeah, like they always said, you know, Rajiv, whenever there was violence, there was some kind of a thing, we'd be right there and we'd say, okay, that's bad, but wow, what great news. So it was almost
that's what
schizophrenic, you know, and I would find that lay persons look at us and say, are you guys mad?
Yeah.
I mean, you're actually enjoying violence. So what do you
Juicy
think?
stories.
Yeah.
But that is there, Seema. But you know, as for me, I'll be looking forward to. We have elections coming up, and then one good thing that we've done at the Citizen is we've been reporting from places that otherwise are not covered. You know,
True.
For example, elections, you normally have people, you know, covering from the state capitals, but we try to go to the interiors. You know, there's some small town, district, someplace, and report from there, and that is what kind of enriches you also. Last elections, I remember I'd climbed those heights at Sanj in Kullu just to see what was the left was up to over there. Though it was just a pocket. But then learning from there, you know, having climbed a hilltop and then seeing how Narega matters over there or how Asha workers matter over there. So these are the things, you know, and again, this is something I keep on looking forward to. And thankfully at the Citizen, we are away from that mundane thing of, you know, writing press notes and all that. So we can actually analyze things on the ground and report from what we see over there, actually.
And last word to you.
I'm hoping that there is some level of media freedom restored. I hope my colleagues from other organizations who are suffering under the regime don't suffer anymore. And I hope all of us have a peaceful year. And I mean, call me boring, but that's my top wish, is for peace and for all of us to be able to continue to do good work.
Good work. Right. So I think we'll end on this note. And on the positivity side is that you're going to be seeing a lot more of the Citizen writers, because we will be doing sort of these kind of editorial comments every month, every 2 months, and bring to you what our reporters and our writers and our editors feel in the field. We'll be introduced to more as we go along. a very, very happy new year, and we're going to see you in 2024. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here.